Hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here, welcoming you back to the channel once again for another generous helping of fighting game history. The enormous and ever expanding Street Fighter universe has provided us with many popular and iconic characters over the years, but also several rather interesting ones that for one reason or another have flown under the radar and don't get talked about or acknowledged that much. One fine example of this isn't actually a character at all, but rather a pair of characters that a lot of people seem to have forgotten about completely. This duo of Bison-controlled evil Shadaloo Dolls made their debut all the way back in 1998 and have made several in-game appearances since. But despite this, they still don't seem to have much in the way of online recognition, and you'll struggle to find much at all about them here on YouTube. So with today's upload, let's attempt to change that somewhat. That's right folks, in this episode we're going to be talking about the in-game and storyline history of that pesky assassin double act of Juni and Julie. This is the secrets of the Shadaloo Dolls. Yeah. Juni and Julie, two ladies who would first appear in the classic title we know and love as Street Fighter Alpha 3. Juni and Julie serve as guards for their master, the hat-fancying maniac M. Bison, which gives narrative rationale for why they act as a sub-boss before players make their way to the Shadaloo Kingpin himself. Interestingly, you do not face the two characters individually, and there is no Marvel vs Capcom style tagging in and tagging out. Players are actually forced to face both Juni and Julie as a combo at the same time in what is essentially a handicap match scenario. This works in a very similar way to the dramatic battle option present on several versions of various games in the Alpha series, and provides a very exciting matchup and a nice bit of gameplay variety within the confines of a regular Street Fighter tournament format. In the original arcade version of Alpha 3, the two girls were available to unlock, but had no actual in-game storyline or cutscenes of their own, and merely shared Bison's plot and piggybacked onto his ending. After the game was ported to home consoles however, developers kindly added in some actual dedicated narrative points and proper endings for the two girls, and also made them part of the main active roster with no need to go through the rigmarole of unlocking them. In this new version of events surrounding the Alpha 3 tournament, we see that Bison and Shadaloo have tasked Juni with tracking down and eliminating Ryu, while Julie has been assigned with the mission of tracking down Cammy and taking her out of the equation. Once they have made it past their respective targets and beaten Bison, we are treated to two different endings for the two ladies. Julie's ending sees her vital signs dropping rapidly after Bison is defeated, despite his surprise that she is able to use the Psycho Drive herself, only to be saved by former rival Cammy, who puts Julie into the machine to fix her up again. Julie's ending sees her looking remorseful standing over Bison's corpse, asking just who he really is. She is then reunited with Julie as the pair utter the words, "We are always Sir Bisons," before it is revealed by Chun-Li and Charlie Nash that they could find no vital signs for the assassin pair after the Shadaloo base had been blown up. Both Chunners and Nash are left wondering where the sultry duo might have disappeared to, with Charlie lamenting the fact that now the Shadaloo base has been destroyed, they will never solve the mystery. "The truth and the Psycho Drive details went up in smoke," said the man who can't seem to decide what his bloody name is. Julie's Alpha 3 storyline is embellished upon and continued further in some of the later console ports of the game. During T-Hawk's single player story for example, it reveals that Julie used to be his girlfriend. Originally named Julia, she lived in T-Hawk's home village with him until she was kidnapped and brainwashed by that horribly evil bugger Bison and his Shadaloo crew. T-Hawk's ending sees him take the dying and still brainwashed Julie in his arms as he heads back to his homeland with her. "Julia, however long it may take, I promise that I will save you," he says. While on the subject of Alpha 3 and its many ports, it's worth noting that the PlayStation version, which was the first home console port of the game, only offered players either Ryu and Ken or Juli and Juli as unique selectable pairings in the full campaign of the dramatic battle mode. Although you could match the characters up in any way you saw fit, any other pairings would only be playable for individual matches in the chaotic multi-person fights. This was due to the RAM limitations that often blighted the weak and feeble little PS1, when having some of the more animation-centric 2D Capcom fighting games ported over. The developers of the PlayStation version of Alpha 3 had already used some clever polygon-based hitbox trickery to circumvent this issue, so it's no wonder extra memory for multiple sprite pairings was scarce. Juni and Julie are also the only characters from the whole Alpha 3 roster to have combined special moves and super combos, making them a unique selection to players, and adding a new tactical element to matches. These combination attacks are obviously only usable in-game when they fight as a pair during the dramatic battle mode, but they are really fun to pull off. The names Juni and Julie come from the German words for June and July. This is because all 12 members of the Shadaloo Doll assassins are named after the individual months of the Gregorian calendar, but in various different languages. It is unknown exactly what, if any, connection there is between the girls and Germany, or if this is just an arbitrary naming scheme. As far as their respective appearances go, Juni is 5'4" and 101 pounds with blonde or orange hair, while Julie is ever so slightly larger, standing at 5'4.5" and 108 pounds with dark hair. Juni has her bobbed blonde hair short and styled to be slightly covering her face, while Julie has her brown hair tied into a bun at the back, with long, thick bangs at the front. The original character designs actually came from a head swap with the version of Cammy that appeared in Alpha 2 Gold and X-Men vs Street Fighter, although Julie has been altered slightly to make her appear a tiny bit larger. As any true Street Fighter aficionado will no doubt already be aware, this actually makes pretty good sense from a storyline perspective, as Cammy, or codename Killer B as she was known back then, was originally a cloned Shadaloo assassin too, so it makes sense that the lazy good-for-nothing Shadaloo boffins over in the science and cloning department would just keep reusing the same molds all the time. The two girls both wear the exact same matching outfit, which is the official attire of the Doll Assassins and consists of a navy blue cap with a small shiny Shadaloo emblem on the front, towards the left a tight navy blue thong leotard with a revealing open back section, a small yellow tie attached to the front of the outfit, imposing looking red gauntlets on both hands, knee-high black combat boots, all complemented by a brown armband on the left arm. Very fetching. Both Juni and Julie have brown eyes, although they were changed to blue by Capcom for their appearances in Street Fighter 4 and 5. Juni is type AB blood and is a fan of both cats and reading, while Julie is type B and apparently has a strong love for avocados of all things, making her very popular to play as amongst the millennial demographic. Bloody millennials, walking around like they rent the place. Both of the assassin ladies utilise the Shadaloo Elite Forces training, which mostly dictates their fighting style, as they were originally both from the same unit as Cammy, as well as sharing similar physical characteristics. Our two girls also share many of Cammy's moves and techniques. Juni's attacks are predominantly based on Cammy's various appearances in the Versus series of crossover games, and she has several moves that are variations of one made famous by Cammy. Juni performs a special aerial version of the Spiral Arrow and the classic Cannon Spike, as well as several unique maneuvers, such as the Max Slide Teleport and an air throw that knocks her opponent back down to the ground called the Earth Direct. Julie's most useful and effective original attack is probably her Sniping Arrow, which is a flying kick that launches her vertically across the screen, taking out any opponents that happen to be in her way. Although we know a little bit about how the character of Julie came to be, Juni's origin story is still somewhat shrouded in mystery and has yet to be fully embellished by the good folks over at Capcom. As mentioned earlier, Julie was originally named Julia and was a young girl living in the village of T-Hawk and the Thunderfoot tribe. Both girls were captured and brainwashed by Shadaloo at around the age of 16, which is approximately how old all the dolls were when first kidnapped. This group of female assassins act as personal bodyguards to Bison and were completely subservient to their master. In their fully controlled and brainwashed state, the girls show no signs of human personality and communicate more like robots or machines, displaying no signs of emotion. The dolls' pre-programmed brainwashing was so effective and corrupted them so much that if Bison were to die, they would immediately perish too, given the link between them was so strong. The doll assassins were also highly ranked and respected Shadaloo operatives despite their young ages, with the only members ranking above them being Bison himself, Balrog, Vega, Fang, and former member, the man who can rock an eye patch like nobody else, Zagat. Although Alpha 3 was the only mainline fighting game that the girls made a proper appearance in as full roster members, the sultry assassins have made cameos in several other games and shown up in numerous other forms of Street Fighter media. The first of which was the Super Street Fighter 4 OVA, or original video animation, where we see Juri on a mission from Sin to capture all 12 of the dolls. Guile and Cammy eventually show up to save the day and rescue Juni and Julie, but only succeed in rescuing Juni, with Julie being taken with all the rest of the dolls to Seth's secret laboratory to be experimented on. This animated appearance was followed by separate cameos from the girls in the respective Super Street Fighter 4 endings of both Cammy and T-Hawk. Cammy's ending shows us that Juni has been hospitalised after her unfortunate encounter with Juri and appears to be suffering from amnesia. We also learn that this is where Juni gets her love of cats, as she is introduced to Cammy's little feline pet whilst hospitalised, and takes quite a shine to the furry little thing. T-Hawk's ending is a bit more of a depressing one, as we see that Julie is in a catatonic state, being cared for by an elderly couple in a secluded cabin in the wilderness. The girls also have a small presence in Street Fighter V, albeit once again separately. Juni shows up alongside Cammy in the main portion of the game, while Julie makes an appearance in the June 2016 downloadable cinematic story expansion as Shadow Falls. In Cammy's story, we see that Juni has recovered from her time in the hospital and is living under protection at Delta Red whilst learning to cook with McCoy. Cammy and Juni are later both attacked by a gang of Shadaloo soldiers, led by Captain Clawhand himself, Vega. Although the outcome here is a little unclear, as Juni does not show up at any point alongside her usual gal pal in the Shadow Falls, it's fairly safe to assume that Shadaloo had not captured Juni due to Cammy's protection. Meanwhile, in the aforementioned Shadow Falls, Julie and all the other remaining dolls are seen to have been recalibrated by Fang to carry out his nefarious deeds. Now under the influence of psycho power and back to being all evil, Julie battles the heroic Cammy only to be defeated before Cammy is herself defeated by that pesky git, Vega. Eventually, Julie and all the other dolls break free of their brainwashing and the psycho power's influence, when Rashid destroys the device Fang was using to control them. The girls have also made several appearances in the popular Udon Street Fighter comics that always seem to get brought up in these videos. Outside of the main Street Fighter titled media, Juni and Julie have also made appearances in a few crossover titles, such as the Japan exclusive Namco Cross Capcom, which has been covered elsewhere on this channel and is well worth a look at. They would also turn up on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, in SNK vs Capcom Card Fighters Clash, and in Sir Bison's ending of the curious SNK vs Capcom SVC Chaos, which is worth checking out just to see SNK's version of all of Capcom's characters, if nothing else. The girls also make a blink and you'll miss it cameo in Street Fighter Cross Tekken on a billboard in the background of the half-pipe stage, and for an extra bit of useless trivia, Christy Montero, who is one of the Tekken characters, also has Julie's outfit as one of her alternate attires. So there you have it, Easter eggs galore regarding these two mysterious fighters. But for one little bit of extra musing, I have often wondered if the Dictator's all-female crew of Shadaloo Dolls was inspired by real-life despotic dictator Colonel Gaddafi's Amazonian Guard. This unofficial name was given to this group of women by Western journalists, but in reality, his all-female elite cadre of bodyguards was officially known as the Revolutionary Nuns, which has a ring to it as sinister as the Shadaloo Dolls in my opinion. They were brainwashed and tasked with protecting the late former leader of Libya at any costs, drawing all sorts of parallels with their fictional Capcom counterparts. Personally, I think the similarities between the Amazons and the Dolls are too difficult to write off. But hey, that's just a theory, a game theory. Thanks for watching. So ladies and gentlemen, that was the secrets of the Shadaloo Dolls. If you enjoyed today's video and want to learn more about Street Fighter character lore, be sure to click my huge playlist preceding this video that provides unique deep dives on dozens of fighters from Street Fighter's exciting universe. Do not forget to like this video, subscribe and ring that notification bell to be informed whenever I upload a new one. Videos like this are in part made possible due to the generous group of individuals who choose to back this channel via Patreon. Speaking of whom, special thank yous go out to Ben Harradine, Carl Johnson, Hero Paulo Lopez, Johnny Holly, Ryan Ditched, Evan Border, Azra Arkai, Ego, Jordan Durant, Ian Boyle, Nick Daniels, Princess Zana, House of a Ted, Matt Fowle, Steve, Justin Wang, Hermes Gonzalez, Manshovel, Sang Hee, Langston Miller, Blaming Renee, TOG Driver, Luis Viant, John Bates, David Bell, Antonio Rodriguez, Synth Spaces, Punk Toast, and everybody else who is kind enough to back what I do on the Patreon platform. Thank you so much for your wonderful generosity. Ta-ta and farewell.